Assalamualaikum everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Today we are going to discuss another topology in which the spokes are going to communicate to each other through the data center. Spokes are not going to establish a tunnel to each other directly. What I mean is that it will only establish a tunnel to the data center. All of the spokes are going to establish a tunnel to the data center only, and they will not establish a tunnel to each other directly. Okay, and all of the routes, and the second thing is that all of the routes should able to learn on the spoke side. For example, spoke, let's say it's at spoke 3 and spoke 2. The spoke 2 and spoke 3 should learn each other routes, but they will not communicate directly to each other. They will communicate directly through the data center. So in order to understand this thing, let me explain you a few things. The route is going to be installed into the routing table based on two things. First, the route itself, and the second thing is the next hop. If next hop is reachable, then the router is going to install that route in routing table. Same case goes with the SD-WAN environment. So SD-WAN is going to advertise the routes, and it has actually two informations. One is the route or the prefix itself, right? And the other thing is the next hop. And in SD-WAN environment, next hop comprises of three things. One is the TLOC IP. The second is encapsulation. And the third thing is your color, right? So any of the VS device is going to install the route if this next hop is reachable. So right now what we have to do is we have to create a control policy, okay? And in this control policy, as we know that the routes are going to be advertised by the vSmart, okay? So what we have to do is we have to create a control policy in which we are going to advertise the DC TLOCs to spoke so that they will establish a tunnel to the data center only. Okay, this is the first thing. The first thing that we have to establish a tunnel to the data center only. And the second thing we have to do is I have to advertise the routes to spoke, and we have to change the next hop of routes to data center TLOC, right? So that, for example, if spoke 3 wants to talk to spoke 2, spoke 3 will go to the data center. The next hop will be the data center. So spoke 3 will go to the data center, and through data center, it will go to spoke 2. This is how they are going to communicate to each other. So these are the two things that we have to achieve. Firstly, we have to advertise TLOCs to the spoke. And definitely all of the advertisement on all of the policy will be actually catered by this vSmart. So we have to actually, all of this thing plays through in this format. We have to advertise this thing from vSmart to the spokes. Let me conclude all of this story. So all of the route advertisement is actually taken care by the vSmart. Okay. So vSmart is going to actually advertise things to spokes. Right now, the topology that we want to achieve is that all of the spokes should talk to each other, but they will talk through the data center. All of the traffic will pass through the data center. So the first thing is that they will only establish a tunnel to the data center only, and we can achieve this thing by advertising only the DC TLOCs to the spokes. Okay. And the second thing is that in order to advertise all of the routes to the spokes, so we have to change the next hop of all of the routes so that the next hop will be the data center. And this will be achieved by this. We have to change the route policy, change the next hop of the routes actually. Okay. So, and how we can achieve this thing, we have to create a control policy, and the control policy will be in the format of an outbound direction to the spokes. Okay, so let's start the configuration. Before going to the configuration, I would like to show you a few things. As you can see from the route section that I'm learning the route from the data center, which is 192.168.1.0, which is my VH site 1. Okay. And I'm learning the routes from my remote spoke as well, which is VH site 3, 192.168.3.0. Right. These are the routes that I'm learning from the spokes. So right now in my topology, VH site 1 is my data center site, and VH site 2 and VH site 3 is my spoke sites. Let's see a route, actually route specific option. Show MP OMP routes. So let's see in this case what is my next hop. Okay. In order to see the detailed information of that route, so the command will be show OMP routes and then the route itself. Okay. So the routes is actually that I'm learning from is from the vSmart. 10.0.1.2 is my vSmart IP. And the originator is 10.0.3.1. This is the originator is actually my VH site 3. Okay, I can show you as well. And this is the TLOC. As you can say, it's actually the IP is of system IP, and the color is from the interface. It is which is actually learning from it, and then the encapsulation is IPsec. Okay, so on spoke side, I have two upstreams. One we call as biz internet. I can show it to you over there as well, and the other one is a public internet. So I'm learning these routes from the two upstreams of my VH site 3. The important thing that we have to understand is that I do have a route in which I have a TLOC information as well. Okay. And I do establish a tunnel to this site as well. Let me show you too as well. Show VFD sessions. System IP. As you can see, I did establish a tunnel with this TLOC system IP as well. So this is the two information that we talked about earlier. The two information, one is the route itself, and the other thing is the next hop. And as you can see, the TLOC IP is reachable from this VS2 site. So VS2 right now it did establish a tunnel directly to the VS3. Okay. So let's start our configuration and let's see how we can achieve this thing. So first thing is go to the policies. We have to create a policy right now. So click on add policy. Few things that we have to define as a site, which is site is like my data center site is 1. And my spoke sites are from 2 to 3. Okay, let me add the TLOC of the data center. Data center TLOCs are, in the TLOC information, what are the things that we added? The TLOC IP, and the TLOC IP is actually a system IP of that site. This is my data center site. Show run system. Okay. System IP is this. Okay. Color defines my upstream interfaces on which I'm having different colors. Let me see what, so on my data center side, I have only one upstream, and the color that I have associated to that is biz internet. Okay. Color will be my biz internet, and the encapsulation will be IPsec. This is my data center TLOC, and yeah, I think so. That's it. This is the information that I'm going to use. Right. Okay. Next. From the perspective of advertisement, we can control from a control policy, and in this case, we have to create our own custom topology or a control policy. So click on Add Topology and Custom Control Route and TLOC. It's like a route policy, or we can say spoke to spoke through data center. Spoke to spoke communication through data center. Click on add sequence type. Okay, the first thing is we talked about as earlier that we have to advertise only data center TLOC. So click on TLOC. Click on sequence rule. We have to advertise only data center TLOC. So the site will be my data center and it will be accept. By clicking this option in action tab, then click on accept. Okay. So I will advertise only data center TLOCs to my device, to the spokes. And the second thing what we have to do is we have to advertise the routes as well. In this advertisement, we see that what is the thing that we have to do? We have to advertise all of the routes. The important thing is we have to advertise. In the perspective of routes, we have to advertise. The first thing which we have to do, advertise all routes. We are not filtering any routes. But the second thing what we have to do is we have to change the next hop. Change the next hop of all routes to data center TLOC. So this is the first thing, that we are not filtering any routes, but the only thing what we have to do is we have to change the next hop. In matching condition, I'm not matching any condition. I'm selecting all the routes. I have to apply the action on all of the routes. So the action will be, I have to firstly accept, and the action that I'm going to perform is to change the TLOC. And the TLOC will be my data center TLOC. Click on Save Match and Actions. So by default, the action is reject. Okay. So let it be like this. So click on Save Control Policy. Next, we are not using any data policy. DC on. Okay, now talking about the applicability of that policy. As we know that, as we discussed earlier, the applicability of this policy is towards the spokes. It will be the outbound to the spokes. Click Add, Save Policy. Click on Activate. So this is a control policy. It will be pushed onto the vSmart. Okay, we cannot see this policy onto the vEdges. This policy is we can see this policy on the vSmart only. Okay, the policy is pushed right now onto the vSmart. Let me see. Yeah, it's success. Now, as you can see, the policy is already pushed onto the vSmart. Now let's get back to my vEdge side. This is one of my spoke side. Now let's type the show BFD session. Let's see that do we establish the tunnel with the data center only or with all of their devices. So BFD sessions. Okay. Now you can see I have only established a tunnel with site ID 1, which in my case site ID 1 is the data center. That is the first thing that we have achieved successfully. Now let's talk about the routes. Show IP routes. Oh, great. Now I am also learning the routes of the other data center as well, which is 192.168.3.0. It is actually my vEdge site 3. I am learning the routes, but the important part is that the TLOC is the data center TLOC. 10.01.101 is the data center TLOC IP. Let me further show OMP routes 192.168.3.0/24. as you can see right now, the originator will remain the same, which is 10.0.3.1, which is my site ID 3. It is telling the truth. But the next hop, which is a TLOC, in this case, it is my data center TLOC IP. Okay. So in this case, for this particular route, the next hop is my data center, right? Earlier we discussed, if I just scroll down a little bit above, as you can see, if before applying this policy, we saw this thing that the next hop was that VH3 site itself. But right now, it's not like this. Right now, the next hop is 10.0.1.101. So now I have changed the next hop of all of the routes to the data center. And let me ping to my spoke site, which is 192.168.3.100. is my system IP, host IP of my VSI3, and I do able to ping that. Let me do a trace route VPN 192.168.3.100. Yeah, you can see it goes to the 192.168.1.254, which is to the data center, right? And then goes to the site 3 and then to the host. Okay, it is not directly reaching to that. And let's go to my data center site. On my data center site, I didn't apply any policy, so it means that all of the routes will be as it is format. And the BFD sessions are going to establish with my both of the spoke sites, which is spoke site 2 and spoke site 3. So BFD sessions. Yeah. So it has successfully established a tunnel with spoke site 2 and spoke site 3, and the routes will remain in as it is format because we are not applying any policy on. Let's see with the same routes, with the OMP routes, 192.168.1.3.0/24. Show OMP routes. Oh, sorry. Let me just do a specific check. Oh, you can see over here, the originator will definitely my site 3, and the TLOC, the next hop is actually will remain intact. So I'm not changing anything on my data center. The only change that I have applied on my spoke sites are that I advertise the data center TLOCs only, which helps them to establish the tunnel with the data center. And the second thing is that I have advertised all of the routes to the spokes, and what I did, I changed the next hop of all of the routes to the data center so that they will communicate to each other through the data center. I hope this video is informative to you. Keep watching Bits and Bytes. Thank you. Bye.